There is nothing worse in a marriage when over a period of time you've become roommates. All the connection's gone, all the love's gone, all the intimacy's gone. It is such a difficult situation to be in. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through a few steps that you can start taking to be able to rekindle that spark and really get your marriage back on track. Now before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and click on that bell notification as well, so every week you get access to my latest videos where I talk more about how to go about saving your marriage, what you can do to really heal yourself after some really difficult times in your marriage, and learning more about male psychology so you can really start to elevate that level of connection that you want with him. Now, one of the keys to really going through this process and trying to figure out how you can rekindle the spark is understanding how the marriage got to this place. See, the chances are that you've been married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, which is a long period of time. And at the very beginning, like any marriage, it's wonderful. There's connection, there's love, there's intimacy, and all of that good stuff. And then over a period of time, it starts to just decline. It starts to deteriorate. And that can often happen because of kids or careers and so on. And it happens in a very slow and subtle way. It's not often just one moment. There's lots of little steps along the way that lead to this feeling where you're essentially roommates. And what I've observed over the years is that there are 4 phases that a marriage often goes through when it gets to this place where two parties are roommates. And the first phase is resistance. Now what this means is that, you guys have spent a little bit of time together, and then there are little things that we start to resist in one another. And those might be, comments or criticisms, or just little things. It might be that you went to the supermarket and you didn't get the right item, or you might be sitting on the couch when she's needing your help and she's getting a little bit frustrated. And so she might say something like, look, when are you actually going to help out? When are you going to take the trash out? Or whatever it may be. There are lots of examples, and each marriage is very different. And what I will say is that it occurs on both levels, right? So it's not just about the woman making comments, it also works vice versa. And so when those little things start to occur, the individuals on the receiving end resist those particular behaviors. And so once there is enough resistance, once there is enough of those behaviors that have stacked and stacked over a period of time, we then get to the next phase, which is resentment. We resent the other person for how they've operated over a period of time. We get frustrated, we get hurt, we get angry, but we resent that individual. And a lot of people don't know how to handle that resentment. So often it's expressed in the form of anger, frustration, being short with that individual and so on. And it can be really, really challenging to deal with, because the person on the receiving end often feels like, I don't really understand how this has happened, and why is he being so mean to me? And I was a little bit frustrated at times, but I love him and I want to be with him and I want to care for him so much. So why is he being so mean to me? But that resentment has just built up and built up. And the person on the receiving end starts to also get frustrated, because if the man is getting really angry and frustrated and short with his partner or his wife, then the natural reaction in that moment is to push back, is to lash back, is to fight back on some level, or to shut down and not do anything about it. And that can be a really, really difficult dynamic to sort of work out and trying to figure out what we can do to actually move forward. But once again, if that stacks and stacks and stacks over a period of time, then that leads to the next phase, which is rejection. And that is essentially where he stops making any kind of effort. If you're trying to organize date nights or, connect with him on some level, he's not interested. He's more interested in going out and hanging out with his mates, or going and playing sports or watching TV, whatever it is. There is this constant feeling of rejection. And then, once again, if that stacks and stacks over a period of time, both parties almost get to a place where it is so painful, but because that pain is not something that we can actually bear for a lengthy period of time, we slowly start to suppress those emotions. And once it's suppressed enough, it then leads to repression. We repress it, and we're almost just subconsciously shutting down those emotions. We start to become numb, and essentially what happens is that there is a complete loss of connection, and it's just, they've accepted that this relationship's going nowhere, and you've just become roommates and often just hanging out because at the end of the day you've got kids and so on, and we just need to be here for the kids, and that's about it. And look, naturally every marriage is going to have some slight variations to this, but these steps that I'm talking about play out a lot in terms of contributing towards couples getting to a place where essentially they're roommates. What do we do when we're in this place? Well, I'm going to talk you through 4 steps now that you can start to employ right now to be able to create some shifts in your marriage and really start to evolve and move forward. Now, the first step that you need to take if you want to create some shifts here is that you need to make that decision that you want to create those shifts. Now, that might sound overly simplistic, but it is so important. What I see a lot is that individuals kind of want to make some changes, but they're a little bit fearful about what might happen or whether it's the right person or whether the marriage is kind of over. So they've kind of got one foot out the door and one foot that they're kind of wanting to hang in there and, hopefully do it for the kids and so on. And I respect that completely. I understand how challenging it is. But I really maintain that in any area of our lives, if we want to make progress, if we want to create a shift, you've got to have that kind of laser focus. And that laser focus says, this is where I want to go. I want to make this marriage work. I'm deciding to make this marriage work. Or I'm going to give it my all for the next, say, 3 to 6 months. And if I can give it my all for that period of time and I don't start to see any progress, then I can then make some different decisions. But we've got to make that decision to say, I'm ready to move forward. And then on top of that, once you've made that decision, that you're going to commit to starting to communicate at a much deeper level with your husband. Now, I know the communication in these situations is very tough, because at the end of the day, if he's shutting down, if he's stonewalling you, if he's not giving you anything at all, no crumbs whatsoever, it can feel really difficult to try and actually get that connection back and to start communicating. But this is where it's really important. Once you've made that decision to say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And part of that comes down to actually making the effort to, specifically sit down with him at some point and say something along the lines of, listen, honey, I know we've been going through some really tough times in our marriage of late, and it's been going on for a long period of time actually. And if we're honest with ourselves, it's probably been going on for a long period of time. And so I understand you're probably going to be in a place where you're hurting a little bit. I know it's been difficult for me as well, but I think it would be really good to be able to sit down and actually just kind of discuss, like, how are you doing? And also, where do you think things went wrong? How do you think we kind of got to this place? And are there things that, you noticed about me or that you found difficult to deal with at those times when we were going through some challenges in terms of communication? And what I often find is that when we communicate in these situations, when we're going through a tough time, when there's a potential separation on the cards and so on, I often find that both parties are often a lot more vulnerable with each other. They're a lot more open. And often there can actually be an elevated level of intimacy. But you've got to start having those conversations. As I said, I know it's hard, I really do. But if you can start to communicate in that kind of a way and really open up those conversations a lot more, then you get a really good insight into what he's been going through, but also the opportunity to be able to share what you need to share as well. Now, some of you I know might be sitting there going, but my husband won't be saying anything like that, or he's just going to attack me and so on, and I get that. And I know that there are some individuals out there who can be pretty nasty and so on, and this is probably, once again, an opportunity to do a bit of a stock take, to look back on the past and see, okay, well, is this man aligned with my values as a person? Is he actually the right person for me? But if you are making that decision, like I pointed out before, that you want to make this work, you have to commit to it. And I always say, if you can do this for 3 to 6 months and really commit to that, and then all the evidence that you're getting back is this guy is just not interested, then you can revisit things and reassess how you're going to move forward from there. Secondly, what you want to do is observe your own communication patterns. For example, do you typically avoid conflict? Do you find it hard to speak your truth? When things get difficult, how do you react? And all of these patterns play out in relationships. And it's very easy for us to look at the overall situation and say, well, he's actually really difficult to deal with. But at the same time, we want to look inwardly and say, okay, well, how have I actually been showing up? Have there been times where I've needed to actually speak my truth? Have there been times when, I've needed to make more of an effort to, elevate him or listen better and so on? And this is not a criticism in any way. This is just to understand, what can we do better? And I know sometimes people can find this frustrating, having to do the work, especially if people have been on the receiving end of infidelity and so on, because it's, why the hell do I have to do all of this? He's the one that cheated on me and so on. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't matter, regardless of what's happened on the external level, we always have to grow in order to grow in all areas of our lives. And I know that's hard to sometimes do, but I promise you it is so rewarding when you do that. And so if you identify these patterns and say, okay, well, in the past, yeah, I have been someone that's found it really hard to be direct with him, to share what I'm feeling, because I'm always uncomfortable about sharing those things, because I'm worried that if I was to share those things, that maybe he might see a part of me that he doesn't like and might start rejecting me or want to leave me or whatever. There's so many different patterns that we run. So take the time to observe, what are those patterns, or what are the surface level behaviors that you've struggled to engage in over the years, such as not being able to share what you feel and so on. And that will give you a really good indication of the areas that you need to improve on and progress in as well. And once you start doing that, once you start maybe opening up a little bit more or addressing the areas that you need to address, then that can actually start to create some changes in terms of the dynamic between the two of you. And thirdly, an extension to the second point, you want to really prioritize your own self-care. See, when we have a beautiful relationship with ourselves, when we enable self-acceptance, when we have more self-love and so on, we tend to have better relationships with other people. I don't think I've seen in the past individuals who have such a low sense of self, a low self-esteem, low confidence and all of that stuff, have these incredible marriages where things have been wonderful and everything's just amazing with each other and so on. It often doesn't work that way. And so you really want to try and invest your time and your energy and so on into your own growth. What are the areas that you can improve in as a person? Do you feel like you are worthy of love? How much do you actually love yourself as a person? Do you feel like you're good enough, or do you feel inadequate? Are you worried about being abandoned? Do you have those wounds of abandonment? All of these things play a part, because at the end of the day, our journey in this lifetime is to really elevate to those next levels of consciousness. I really believe that fully. It's not about trying to get a relationship so then you can feel like you're enough. It's about learning to become enough as you are, and then that love that you're filled up with overflows and extends out into someone that you love and that you can be intimate with and so on. And then that really can help to take it to a new level. You have a beautiful experience at that point. Now, that doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect, or that you can't go into relationships with some wounds and so on at all. Not at all. I mean, I went into my marriage with my own wounds as well. And so the process of being with my wife has slowly helped me to heal those. But the thing is that if we are always operating at those levels of fear, of anxiety, of shame, of stress, of guilt all the time, and that is where we live more often than not, then that is continuously going to be reflected in the marriage. It is going to play out in different patterns. And the key is that you want to have the mindset of, I want to work through these things, I want to grow, and I want to be the best version of myself. But what I see often is that when people are together, what they're looking for is hoping that that person acts in a certain way so that it actually fills them up. And that is often a mistake. So the more that we evolve, the more we grow, we start to show up in a different way. We give off a different energy. We give off a different vibe. We say different things. We communicate in a better way. And when we do that, the other person's going to pick up on that. They're going to notice those shifts. That's the magic of this process. It is truly amazing stuff. We have to shift from within. That is the secret sauce. And when you're prepared to do that, really, really wonderful things can start to happen. So really commit to your own growth and prioritize your self-care. Now, finally, what you want to do is start to revive that intimacy and that connection. Because at the end of the day, a relationship or a marriage is simply a really beautiful friendship, but with the intimacy component. And building that friendship first and then developing the intimacy part is really important. You know, any wonderful marriage that I've seen, the couple are like best mates. They love hanging out with each other. They have so many laughs, they're always joking with each other, but they also know how to fight with each other in a positive way. They can have discussions, they can have disagreements, but they know how to process it in a better way because they know that the other person is not trying to attack them in a way that's taking love away from them. And that's really the key here. We want to develop that friendship. And that's why the first few steps that I talked about are so important, to decide, to communicate, to really prioritize that self-care, because as you evolve, you're going to want to learn more about your husband. You're going to want to connect more with him. And it's going to come more from the heart. It's not going to come from your head trying to get whatever you can to try and meet those needs internally. It's about, I genuinely love this man. I really care for him, but I also care for myself. And so I'm not needing him to fill me up. I just want to love him and I want to get to know him at the deepest level because I just love him. He is just a beautiful, beautiful person I really want to connect with. And the more you're able to evolve that part of you, then he's going to reciprocate. There's going to be more of that connection because he's going to feel it. Now, I want to be clear here that there are some men who are just not very good men, just like there are some women who are not very good women, and that's okay. The process here is to identify these things and work out what is actually going to be for your highest good long term. What is actually going to help you to evolve? And so when you've worked through this process to elevate you and start to rebuild that friendship by, doing things like just date nights or just sitting on the couch and just watching TV, but actually connecting, like holding each other and sharing special moments together, or going for a lovely walk along the beach, just things that are actually going to allow the two of you to actually properly connect. That's always going to be a wonderful thing. And it doesn't even have to be the physical intimacy part. It's actually, even just the emotional intimacy is very, very important. And then you do need to also establish the physical intimacy component, because I do believe that that is an important part of any marriage. And that's not to say that, men only want sex or anything like that. It's an equal expression of the love for each other, and the physical part is very, very important. So you want to really expand that part of the marriage as well, along with the emotional intimacy. And you've got to make sure you dedicate that time to doing those things. Once again, you give yourself a good 3 or 6 months to work through those things, to evolve and slowly make small steps along the way. And things really can start to shift. But it all comes from the inner shifts first. I know how frustrating that is. Even when I went through my own journey, I was like, why do I always have to be the one to create these changes? Why do I always have to be the one to shift? But looking back now, and even as I move forward, I know it is the answer to it all. It is the answer to shifting your life, your health, your business, your career, your finances, whatever it is. The more we grow individually, the more our life then expands as well. So I hope this all makes sense. Now, I know on this journey, it can be really challenging to sometimes work through it on your own. How do we identify these wounds? How do we identify the areas that we need to work on and evolve in, and so on? So I appreciate how difficult that is. So if you're in a place where you're needing some support, that you're feeling a little bit isolated and alone and not sure how to navigate your way through it, well then I'd love to be of service to you through my program, The Authentic Relationship System. It's an amazing program. You can get loads out of it. There's also a beautiful community of women there who can also support and guide you and just be there for you as you're going through this really difficult time. But it can also inspire you to create these big shifts on the inside. So if it's something that feels right for you, if you resonate with my videos and you want to connect more with this, then all you need to do is in the description section below, just click on that link which says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then I'll contact you at that scheduled time, just so I can learn a little bit more about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time. Thank you so much. I can't wait to be of service to you. And once again, click on that link and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit that like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know if you have any questions or comments or takeaways from this video. I always love reading the comments, and I'll make sure I respond to every single one of you. And if you want to learn the 5 signs that he's truly serious about you and wants to move forward with you, then click this video above. Thank you so much, God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next video.